Since 1989, when I first published in it, the underlying messages in terms of the data haven't changed. So for 20 or 30 years, it hasn't changed. And what we do in academia is we write our stuff, and if it has any resonance out there, the next thing we do is someone comes along and pulls it to pieces. I find it quite remarkable that over the last 30 years, no one, not a single person, has come up with a different story. But what's the story underlying the blue zone compared to the yellow zone? And I'm not interested in the red zone. That's the stuff that's below zero. And I'm not interested in that because there's no evidence out there at all that you do harm to kids. Quite a few of those in that red zone are perfectly sensible. The effect size of bullying on kids' achievement, minus 0.2. Perfectly sensible. And when you take those into account, 95 to 98% of things that we do to kids enhances their achievement. So come on, those who are here the last 2 days, all you need to enhance achievement is a pulse. But that's why the politicians go crazy. That's why every parent knows how to fix schools. Because if we argue, can we improve learning, what works, virtually everything does. That's why you never find a below average teacher. Because in the sense of asking the question, can you enhance learning, they're right. Every single one can, virtually. And that's why you've got to ban the words what works from your vocabulary. And you've got to start asking what works best. You've got to start asking, have we the evidence that we are in the blue zone? And a lot of the work that we do, the Corwin group does, and we have around 5,000 to 7,000 schools around the world that are implementing this thing called visible learning, and I'm very grateful for the teams from Corwin and the other places that are doing this. Because I'm the academic, I write the stuff, they're the translators. I don't talk about the best way to teach. Because if there was a best way to teach, surely you're all doing it. Surely every kid walks through the door and is influenced by the same one thing. It doesn't work that way. I want teachers, who, as you'll see, who are very strategic about how they decide, about how they teach. But my major message is to switch that conversation from how we teach to the impact of our teaching. And that's kind of the visible learning messages you'll hear. Build a coalition around that success and grow it. The answer is not out there. It's here, in these rooms. And I ask also you, as educators, to do the same. Because I get very, very frustrated that you, as educators, are often the first to deny your expertise. Are you prepared to identify the success in your school in a reliable way? Are you then prepared to build a coalition of that success? And sometimes it might include the 5-year-old teacher out, and it may exclude the 30-year teacher out. Build that success, and then all we ask you to do in the visible learning story is then to invite those in the yellow zone to join. That's it. And we privilege experience. As research has shown many, many times, the correlation between expertise and experience in education is, after 5 years, is 0. Now, nothing wrong with experience. Many experienced teachers are in the blue zone. But having that courage to dependably identify the excellence to me is not what they say, it's their impact they have on their students. And the underlying mantra of what does work is this notion of when teachers see learning through the eyes of students. How do we move the debate away from how you teach to the impact of your teaching? A small shift in the psyche, but a dramatic shift in what happens. And you're going to be hearing throughout the day, self-regulation, metacognition, 21st century skills, lifelong learning. It's a very simple notion, a very powerful simple notion when students see themselves as their own teachers. When students know what to do when they don't know what to do. And I find it remarkably ironic that 5-year-olds are pretty good at it. But by age 8, most kids know that their job is to come to school and watch you work. And it's really interesting, as we do in our visible learning work, one of the first things we do if we're working with your school is we ask the kid, what does it mean to be a good learner in the school? And many of them say, to sit up straight, to listen to the teacher, to get the work done on time. And nothing of that's got to do with learning. It's all to do with submissiveness and compliance. How do you get kids to be their own teachers, particularly given learning is so messy? And look at the effects, dramatically high, about knowing their impact. Look at the effect of teachers' collective efficacy. Isn't it exciting that the new number one in visible learning is when principals, when school leaders are able to get all the teachers in the school having a sense of high confidence that they can change the learning lives of all kids. And the only way that's maintained is by constantly feeding those teachers the evidence of their impact, that they can change the learning lives of all kids. And obviously, it relates to those teachers having high expectations for all the students, not just some of them, not just the gifted kids or the kids from the certain postcodes, but for all those kids. And it is them having that notion of saying up front, this is what success is going to look like as you do this series of lessons. Because many kids, particularly around the ages of 11, 12, 13, many of them say, look, I'm not going to play this game called schooling anymore. And it's not just the teacher-student relationship, it's the teacher building the student-student relationship, so that when a kid in a class says, I don't know what you're talking about, or I've got the wrong answer, it's safe to do that in that class. Because wow, kids can be unbelievably vicious to each other in very subtle ways when kids make mistakes. And we cannot afford that, because let's get honest, guys, nearly all of our learning for us and for kids is based on the simple notion that we don't know. That's why we're there. You've already knew the stuff. Why are you here? And feedback, it gobbles up errors. If you get something right, feedback doesn't have the same impact than if you get it wrong. So how can we make errors opportunities, the beginnings of learning, and make kids see that the challenge and the struggle of learning is the fun of learning? Don't hide it. Don't work on the assumption every teacher is equal. How can we, like every other profession, how can we dependably recognise that excellence, harness it, and use that excellence to work as the leadership in teaching across our schools? Because that's what really matters.